welcome to a new episode of Remember When. Today we're with the Grin and Share It podcast. We're with Amanda, Hannah, and is it Shay?
It's Shay, Shayla, whatever you want to call me works.
Shay or Shayla. So I think we usually start by just getting you to tell us a bit about yourselves, a bit about the podcast. Why did you start? How's it going? Sort of stuff like that. So just tell us about yourselves.
I guess I'll start. So we are the Grin and Share It podcast. We're just what you'd think. We're a couple best friends who, just like a lot of people, thought we'd start a podcast about stuff we're passionate about. So we talk a lot about pop culture. We dove into a lot of like mental health and just what the normal 20-something-year-old experiences growing up. So that's kind of what we're about.
Nice.
Yeah. Just lots of casual chats, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
That's kind of like what we do. I think a lot of people now are toying with the idea of starting a podcast and kind of based in maybe because of like quarantining and stuff like that, chatting with your friends more and like doing it online and stuff like that and discovering that, oh, we actually really enjoy talking to each other. Let's just make other people listen to our conversations as well.
Right.
But we're really enjoying it, so it's all good with us. So I guess we'll go on to pop culture. And do you want to share with us your favorite pop culture moment ever? And we will judge you for it.
Perfect. So who wants to take it away?
I was wondering, because we didn't talk about what we were thinking before. So we all had like a different one. Is that cool?
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes,
no, I'm excited.
love that.
Yeah.
Who wants to start? I already spoken.
Okay, I'll start with mine. So when you sent us the email, I was like thinking about what's like the most defining moment in like pop culture in my life. And I feel like it was in 2016 and 2017 when Harvey Weinstein, a former film producer and now a convicted sex offender, when all of that was going on, that's like what kind of started the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement. And so I was thinking about this because Hannah and I used to be roommates and we saw this movie called Bombshell. And I kind of wasn't familiar with everything going on. And this was like everything that happened at Fox News with like Matt Lauer and Roger Ailes and everything, and just a bunch of like people coming forward with like their stories and everything like that. And I thought that was so different because I mean, like as sad as it was like very telling, and like I feel like it was time for people to start like speaking up about all of this. And I feel like in my life I never really like was familiar, like heard about all of these things happening like in the media. Like I feel like it was something that always happened like behind closed doors, and no one really ever spoke about it until like this all blew up. And now it's like a very common thing to be like, I feel like it's more acceptable like for you to feel like your voice is heard now. And I feel like that was definitely like a defining moment for me, even though it happened recently. And like, because you hear people talk about it like on shows now and you hear it in movies. And I mean, like after we saw the Bombshell movie, like even more films came out about it. And I feel like even with the hashtags and everything, it was very, very like prominent. Like everyone was very familiar with it.
Yeah.
It did seem like the story was just because I watched Bombshell not that long ago, and it was really interesting kind of watching it a few years on from Me Too. And me and Hannah have talked about like we want to do an episode on Me Too and its legacy and kind of how the movement's changed and how it's been co-opted by certain groups and activism and this really like public face and where it's been since it first came out. But yeah, I think what was interesting for me with Bombshell was you kind of expect Fox News to be quite shady, and you don't expect them to have like the best practices, especially, I mean, we don't get it in the UK, but they're trying to do something, or they're trying to establish something very similar here in like coming out, and it's scary.
That's so wild.
Yeah, like we don't have, but they're trying to build like, I can't remember what they're calling it, but it's like a whole new TV network just for right-wing pundits like Piers Morgan to share their views and but what was so interesting about Bombshell, it was like, this is just a system of power, like this is the structure that they all follow, like it's exactly the same as Harvey Weinstein, even though it's not. It's like it felt like you were saying, it's like such a familiar story to us now.
Exactly. And I think what's even more wild about it is people use the argument often, like in the movie. I remember one of the characters being like, you could have prevented this from happening to like so many people. But then you have to think about like people deal with things like in their own time. And like a lot of that like reaction is like out of fear of like what's going to happen to you and like what's going to happen to your career. And I mean, like, you can't really blame anyone for ever being put in that position and like not knowing how to handle it, because a lot of it goes unreported and a lot of it goes unsaid. And like, this is like kind of what's going on recently. If you guys like have been seeing on everyone's stories, like a lot of women are like speaking out about like sexual assault and harassment and just things going like unsaid and unreported. But then you like kind of see like all these men, you know, who just aren't really speaking on the issue. And it's so wild to me that like it just, people just kind of brush it under the rug. So that's why I think the like Me Too movement, like around 2016, 2017, like that was very pivotal, I feel like, in our lives. And like a lot of women like around the world kind of like resonated with it. And I feel like it was very, I don't know, that's definitely like one of my favorite moments like of my life.
Yeah, it's a massive cultural shift, I think.
Yeah, the way it changed the way a lot of people were viewing sexual assaults was important, and also what came from that afterwards, how it changed, and like Holly said, how it was co-opted by certain people, and things, the sort of things that people did that weren't super helpful, like celebrities having award shows and being like, turn up to this award show that supported these men and what they did, but we're black and stuff like that. I think it was really interesting to see how the world reacted, and I definitely think it was a big moment for pop culture and changing pop culture for the future, changing who like how you view Hollywood and things and institutions like that. I think it was really important. I have to agree.
Yeah, because you don't usually associate those kinds of topics with pop culture. Like sometimes you think like I mean, like sometimes even when we're on the podcast talking, like you think pop culture, you think like e-news and like girly stuff and all of this, but like people don't associate it with those things. So yeah.
Exactly, but I think the more that because when we were like, let's start pop culture podcast, I think we were thinking about talking about like funny little stories. And then even when one of the first things we really wanted to talk about was like Britney Spears, and the more you look into these things, it's like, oh, actually the way like it's kind of important to take in Me Too into most of pop culture now, looking back, especially stuff that happened like that we look at a lot, like early 2000s stuff, where you can see this stuff and you think, oh, so I definitely think it's really important in how we view pop culture and big pop culture moments now. So
yeah,
agree.
All right, that wraps it up for mine.
We agree with you. Moving on.
Cool. Shayla, that was really good.
Thanks, guys.
Hannah, you can go ahead if you want, because you haven't spoken yet. By the way, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I guess for me, I mean, you could qualify this as pop culture, but it definitely was covered a lot in like mainstream news, or like mainstream Fox News, CBS, like it was a huge story. But the college admissions scandal that happened, God, I don't even remember exactly when it happened, because I just feel like it's been going on kind of on and off for years. I think it broke back in 2019.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So I actually just recently watched the documentary that Netflix just came out with, which is actually really good. And to me, what made it more like pop culture is the fact that obviously like Olivia Jade was involved in the scandal. There were a ton of people obviously involved, but I think she was probably like the most notable because of who her parents were and because she, you know, was an influencer with a rather large following. And to me, like that was such a big moment, because I mean, I honestly was just in shock that it happened, but also unfortunately not surprised, because I feel like it's a very known fact that people with a lot of money have a lot more access when it comes to power and control over situations. But when I started to like read things from people that got rejected to these Ivy League schools and stuff, or people that, you know, even got accepted, a lot of them, just hearing their stories and their part on it, it really kind of just opened my eyes up to the fact that there was this whole kind of system of injustice that I didn't even really realize. All three of us went to a really good university, and I don't know, necessarily what it's like in the UK, but for us, there is definitely like a level of prestige when it comes to a college. And it was just so interesting to me because even now, like as they serve their sentences, those that were charged or pled guilty, they serve very minimal time. And obviously there's a big injustice in that for me, but also like now Olivia Jade has like trying to make a comeback, but I feel like it's almost hard, if not, I know it's hard, if not impossible, to do something like that after you've kind of got this, behind you for the rest of your life. So to me, like that is something that I feel like is still going on. I still see stories pop up about it time to time. And I'll be interested to see, honestly, like how long it lasts and kind of like where colleges like change in terms of like their admissions process, especially with Ivy League institutions, and sort of what happens for these people moving forward.
What did you think of Olivia Jade's Red Table interview? Because that was like the first thing that she did, wasn't it? And I thought the conversations that Jada Pinkett Smith had afterwards, when they were like, but why has she chosen us? I thought that was a really clever thing to keep in, that they were like not exposing her, but they were going, actually she has an ulterior motive and she's come to us to share her platform, but why? What are the motivations behind that? I was just wondering what you thought of that interview in general.
So I thought the interview was actually really good. I do think that I think that the way that like Jada Pinkett Smith, her mom and her daughter, the way that they handled it, I felt like was really great. Honestly, I think that they held her accountable, but they also, I feel like, were very accepting to what she had to say. Like, I don't think that they were like badgering or berating her. I do think that there were areas where I thought maybe she could have definitely improved upon what she said. And I think that a lot of people still don't necessarily feel like maybe she's taken as much accountability as she should. But I understand that it can only be an uncomfortable situation for her because those are her parents at the end of the day. So like I can only imagine how that feels. I found it to be very interesting. Like I still kind of think about that and I'm like, I wonder why she chose to go with Red Table Talk and why not come out with a different means to sort of address the issue. But I do feel like it was mutually beneficial for the both of them. And I thought it was a really good interview. So,
I feel like a lot of it as well, I've like, since it happened, I've kind of tried to put myself in her shoes a lot, not to like empathize with her, but just to be like, did she know about it? Like, to what extent was she aware? Could you be completely ignorant in this situation? Or was she like, I don't know. Does the documentary tell you anything on that?
It does. So it doesn't really talk so much about her specifically. It really talks about Rick Singer, who was like the mastermind behind it all. And that to me is very interesting because like still to this day, like he's a free man. He hasn't been sentenced. So he's just kind of like walking around. Yeah. He's not serving any time currently. So he's just like out living life. And that to me is just crazy. But so they didn't really talk a lot about her in the documentary. They did talk about like obviously the brand deals that she lost and stuff. And I think it's going to be a very long time before she ever works with another brand. But to me, like the interview was interesting because like she said that even when she found out about it, she really didn't think it was that bad. And like that to me just like speaks volumes. Like she said she was on spring break and she was like, when the story broke, like I didn't understand why people were getting so upset.
Oh, I mean, I think because I'm sure the like admissions process in the UK is like quite a bit different. Right. But we've talked about this like before, me and Holly, and really when between the ages of like 16 to 18, for a lot of people, getting into a good university is like everything to you. It is the main your goal. Whole life. And I can understand how angry and upset people would feel that they had lost out on this opportunity, like their dream, that's something they've worked towards. And I feel anger for those people and hearing her say that, but I think it just speaks to like an immense privilege that people maybe didn't realize before this.
And to me, like another thing that kind of like I thought about is that it wasn't like they were just taking a spot from just any person, but they were bribing to portray their kids as student athletes. So they were taking an opportunity away from like a kid that's worked their entire life to play this sport in hopes of getting them into a good university, because not all the time, but there definitely are some cases where student athletes wouldn't be able to go to necessarily the school that they want to go to if they didn't get that athletic scholarship. So that to me, like that just comes for like a completely separate group of people in itself. So it's really interesting. If you guys haven't watched the documentary, I really do recommend it, because they do interviews with like specific people that were involved, but they like reenact a lot of the scenes too, but they use like original recordings. So you're actually hearing like the wiretaps and like what was actually being said. So it's like they like really spill the tea on that. So yeah, it was really good.
No, I'm gonna watch that probably this evening, because I had seen it like on Friday and thought, yep, that does seem like something I'd be interested in watching.
No, it was really good.
I think I don't think that I'd ever really thought about it when we've like discussed pop culture moments. I don't think I'd ever thought about that, but I remember when it happened, how bizarre it was that Olivia Jade was involved, because I was like this. I don't think Full House is a very big thing in the UK, so I didn't know really about her parents being famous, and I was like, this is weird. This is just a YouTuber who does quite innocent videos that I'd seen on YouTube. She seemed okay. And then suddenly she's embroiled with this massive thing. And I think based on that itself and the reaction, people then getting like, I remember paparazzi shots after it happened of her just going out and meeting friends and stuff like that, and everything that's going on now and how she's going to start up her YouTube career again and stuff like that. I kind of feel stupid for ignoring that as a big pop culture moment, because it's a really bizarre thing to have happened.
Yeah, it is, because like she has, God, I can't even remember. Like, I mean, she has a huge following. Like, she's not just like some wannabe influencer. Like, she had very notable brand deals and has like a very large following. And like just the videos that would come out of her talking about how she doesn't care about school, how she doesn't even really want to go to college. That was like a whole issue in itself too, because it's like wasn't even grateful for the fact that she even got into the school, regardless of how she got in. And so it was just weird, because it's a lot of like really wealthy people that like I don't really know about. I think like the CEO and owner of like Hot Pockets was involved in it, and like all of these like random really wealthy
secretly
business
rich people.
And then it's like Lori Loughlin and Olivia Jade. It's just like I don't know how these people got caught up in it, but it was just such a random mix of people, and obviously has turned into this mess here that's lasted years. So
I think the sentences are so interesting as well, like how little time they got. And I think especially, I mean, obviously the conversation's going to be much bigger in the US, but even here, people are looking at the amount of power the police have, and they say, actually, this isn't right. This doesn't seem like working out for everybody. And the disparity between people who get done for like petty crime in America, and then you're incarcerated, and yet yes, the judge made an example of them by sending most of them to jail, but at the same time,
and I think
13 days.
I think Olivia Jade's mom was sentenced to like 2 weeks, and I might be wrong, but I think she ended up serving less than even that.
What?
So so it was really nothing, and like they had to pay a fine, but obviously like money isn't an issue for them, so it's kind of just like it's like you need to hold these people accountable, but like how do you, because it's like they really just have so much access. And so I think like really the only way is like to not like hire them to be in movies, to not do brand deals with them. I mean, like, it's hard to really associate yourself, I feel like, as a business with someone that just clearly has like no moral compass, I feel like, when it just comes to basic right versus wrong. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, love that moment. Hadn't thought about it myself.
No,
Kind of a surprise one.
Yeah, it feels like it's still going on as well. And so you're like, oh, well, it hasn't filtered through my brain yet, because I don't.
Right.
I'm so interested to see how it's going to end as well. I think.
Yeah.
The like you were saying, like the progression of it, we're in the middle of it still, and the fallout, I think, will be very interesting.
Okay, so I suppose we'll move on to our last pop culture moment. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on this now, maybe.
I know, my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have gone last.
Should have gone first, got it out the way.
I think whenever I think about like a pop culture moment, I mean, a lot of things stick out, but something that was huge was, I think it was also 2019. I think this was coming out around the same time as the Olivia Jade stuff, but it was the like Dramageddon with James Charles, Jeffree Star, and Tati Westbrook. And like some people don't watch YouTube, like that was nothing to them. And like some people just don't care, that was nothing to them. But for me, it was the first time like I had seen like major news outlets cover something involving YouTube. And I'm sure there'd been stuff before, but like I saw E-News posting about this. And I was like, oh, this is like one of those.
CNN posted about it too.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Like this is the first time we're like seeing huge news outlets like that talking about something like YouTube, which a lot of people might find small. But I mean, at the end of the day, with millions and millions of followers combined, like it's not really small. But what I find interesting about it is that like all the allegations, of course, came out. I don't know if I should give a little background of the situation if people aren't familiar, but Tati Westbrook like made a video accusing James Charles of like, I guess having inappropriate relationship with someone else, or like, you know, begging for attention, basically all around not being a good guy.
Yeah.
And Jeffree Star was involved. But anyway, so James then quickly came out with a video like debunking all of that and being like, hey, here are the receipts. Like, I'm a normal guy. Like, you know, this might have been weird, but it wasn't wrong. And I'm not a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, of course, we saw James go from, I think he had like 15 million subscribers and he dropped a bunch. And now, I mean, what is he past like 20 million, I think now. So he really made, correct me if my numbers are wrong, but like he really made this huge comeback, which was crazy to see. But now what we're seeing more, I don't know, there's another incident that came out with James that he was inappropriately Snapchatting like a fan who was a minor. And I go back and forth with this because, you know, with going through what he has with a similar situation like this, you'd think he would be so careful to not even toy with the idea of entertaining a minor or something like that. But I feel like there's some clear evidence that he knew going into this that this kid wasn't of age, and he still proceeded to contact him or whatever. And so I don't know if this was just one big oversight and it really was a mistake on his part, or if this is really in him. I don't know, because obviously we don't know James Charles personally. We don't know his motives or anything, but I think it's just crazy. There's a lot of things, you know, even past like the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein and stuff, like, I mean, it's everywhere that where they're, you know, sex offenders or people having inappropriate relationships with minors and stuff. But I think what's funny to, I guess not funny, but what's interesting is that this stuff is happening with James again, and whether it's true or not, there's like no media coverage on it whatsoever. And I guess to like, I mean, I talk a lot about like the H3 podcast. They've been talking about it a lot, but it almost seems like this whole situation has been swept under the rug. So I don't know, maybe that podcast is just making a bigger deal out of it, and maybe it's not. But at the same time, we saw the kid come out with videos saying like, I was uncomfortable, and I think that's enough, you know, for it to be about, you know, one person to say they're uncomfortable. So I don't know, looking back at like that huge Dramageddon moment, what's happened since then, and now something like this is happening again. I don't know.
I kind of love Dramageddon. Like I hate everything, but I love it so much for
it was so entertaining.
It was so entertaining. Like we had YouTube on in my university house constantly. We had it on the TV. We were watching the videos of his like followers going down. We were watching his videos, his comeback, stuff like that. And like I remember the first time like one of my friends said, "Oh, I'm Team James," and I was like, "How can you be Team James?" And then he did his video, and I was like, I feel bad. Like I feel like I'm in the wrong, and I should have. This is a young boy, and there's like people in their 30s like attacking him. Like that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
And then me and Holly did a podcast for New Year's where we were like giving out awards for like who had done the best thing this year or the worst things.
The worst thing,
and
more than
one of them was who had the best comeback, and at the time we were like, James Charles had a really good comeback this year. He was doing really good things, standing up for a lot of people, and then all of this stuff comes out, and it's I don't want to trivialize it, but it does feel like we've been on a roller coaster with it, and it's like
For sure.
I don't really think that I can really trust anyone on YouTube anymore.
They're all predators. Like, why?
Apparently.
What's happening? Why is it like a prerequisite? Either every YouTuber has said the N-word, has been a disgusting human being, has sexually assaulted someone, or is a predator. And it's like, why is this the type of person that is just successful on this platform?
Right.
And also, we were saying it when the guy came out, when the child came out about James Charles recently, and we were like, we're 22. I've never looked at someone younger than me and thought, oh, I wonder how old they are. I find them like it just doesn't cross my brain. And I'm like, why? And also it's a fan, so this person, there's a power imbalance, and that's what it's all about. This entire time, it's like this: you are an adult now. You've gone through this horrible thing when you were a kid. That should be enough for anybody not to think, do you know what? I am going to pursue fans. And then now his apology was like, he apologized, but he was saying he was going to check IDs of people. It's like, don't go for people who look young. Don't do it. It's not that difficult. Go on Grindr. There are so many dating apps now that
have people's ages on them.
Yeah. I feel like the apology was like done in poor taste, and I feel like a lot of apologies can be done in poor taste. You know, some of them it's like the regular notes app, like let's just post this on Instagram.
It's become such a trope now, hasn't it? Like and then you say, oh, it's another notes app, like Scotty Side did it the other day. They just there's no authenticity in it, except and then people looked at Jenna Marbles' apology and they were like, oh, she's being sincere and she's doing something different. And then Shane Dawson tried to copy it and it was insincere. So there's like a genre of apology.
Also, that's like that fits with the roller coaster as well, because all the stuff about Shane Dawson and how he was involved in Dramageddon and people didn't know and all of this, like I feel there is a lot still going. There is a lot of fallout from Dramageddon still happening years later, and that is in part why I kind of love it. Like I hate it, and I hate all the bad stuff.
It keeps us like stuck to it, you know. It's like I want to know what's going to happen next.
I must have basically given a lot of drama channels a lot of money over the years, because I was attached to drama channels for certain points of my life just to see how this was happening, like what would happen next. It was a wild time to be on YouTube.
It's crazy. I mean, some people watch sports, like we watch the Dramageddon, we watch the pop culture stuff.
Very true.
I think it's I guess another point I wanted to make about that, because we mentioned like all these people empowering. We're seeing like James Charles, Shane Dawson, David Dobrik, like all these people like on a steady decline almost. But then like even with Olivia Jade, like everyone, you know, kind of goes up and down. And I understand that everyone has skeletons in their closet, whether it's a mistake they made in the past or something that they're not proud of. And I do believe people can change. But I think then that falls on the viewer's responsibility to view everything with an objective lens. And I talked about this, I think, in our last podcast episode, where it's just like whether it's a podcast you're listening to or a news outlet or the source itself, you have to be objective and you have to take everything with a grain of salt. And we also talk a lot about like cancel culture and stuff and how we don't think that's productive. We think that if you have made a mistake, you should own up to it and change from it. I do believe there are instances where, this person should not be celebrated anymore. But, you know, it's interesting how we see something like Dramageddon and James Charles, and immediately people hate him, unsubscribe from him, whatever, but then are so quick to fall right back in love with him. And I mean, I kind of did the same thing. At first I was like, oh, I don't like this guy anymore, and then I saw his response and I was like, you know what, I was too quick to judge. And as the viewer, we're always so quick to, you know, cancel this person, but then also bring them back. And I don't know, again, I think that just falls on the responsibility of the viewer of, you know, not holding these YouTubers or celebrities or anyone on such a high pedestal, and like, you know, you can't make a mistake, but also, you know, what was the mistake? How bad was it?
And be better people. And that's what we said as well. Like, if YouTube are going to have young people who blow up entirely on their app, they should have like training, like safeguard training on how to be not abusing people or not have to abuse their power. Like, they have a responsibility as well, as much, I think, as well, because viewers are consumers. So I've definitely started doing a motto, like, because of all the weird stuff Lana Del Rey's doing, even though I loved her, I'm not listening to her new stuff. I'm not going to buy her book. I'm just like, I can't keep supporting the person she is, even though I loved her music. And I think, unfortunately, there's not enough people who do that to make a change yet on YouTube. They don't completely cut people off yet and they just disappear. But I think, I definitely think YouTube has to take responsibility as well, because there's so many of them and they're all terrible and they're not told how to be better people. So they just keep repeating it. And we've seen it with David Dobrik, who was kind of like old generation YouTube, and now James Charles, and TikTokers going like Tanamoji, like they're not good people.
Right.
And they need to be better.
And it's so crazy because, you know, obviously on YouTube, anyone can have YouTube channel. Anyone can get famous. And I want to say it's a little different than mainstream celebrities, but at the end of the day, it's kind of not. Because on YouTube, anyone can be on it, anyone can throw up videos and get attention. Whereas like in mainstream media, if you're an actor or something, you're jumping through a few more hoops. But at the end of the day, as far as like corruption and bad things going on, that's
it's
everywhere.
Exactly the same. You know? It's the same power imbalances, and I think they need to do more. And again, Dramageddon continues. I am intrigued to see what happens.
I'll keep like reading things on it, watching drama channels, and we'll probably keep talking about it. So the impact of Dramageddon was quite something. Massive. For YouTube as well. Like you say, it was being covered in mainstream media. That's quite wild for YouTube too.
And they stopped the subscriber count individually, didn't they, because of that, because people had so many live streams of the subscriber count going down. So that's why it's kind of like a general number now. I think you can still tell.
Interesting.
I didn't actually know that. That is interesting.
That's how many videos I've watched on it. I know, like
okay, so Dramageddon, definitely think that deserves to be one of the top pop culture moments of all time.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel I thought initially when you said you all had a pop culture moment, I was like, maybe at the end me and Holly would be able to say like which one we thought was the best. And I honestly can say I can't do that. Because they were all so important for different reasons, and like there's no way I could say that Dramageddon was a more important pop culture moment than the whole Me Too movement. That would be like kind of a bad thing to say. But like the impact that they all had on different bits of life for a lot of people were.
Or even, I'm thinking of it in like the timeline of it. So obviously you get Me Too kind of like 2015, 2016 was the year that it really blew up, especially in reaction to Trump as well. I think, but then you can kind of trace that. They're all kind of linked together. I know the college scandal isn't like super linked, but she was a YouTuber, and it's like the power imbalance and privilege of YouTubers and the worlds that we live in. So I think they were all very well chosen, and I completely agree. I can't pick between them.
I can't pick one but I feel like at the end of the day they're all kind of to do with like the way that we idolize certain people. And then when suddenly it's like, oh, this person you idolize is actually capable of doing bad things or being involved with bad things and all this stuff, how do you react to that? Do you completely cut them out? Do you stop watching anything to do with them? I think it's all linked up in that. Like Harvey Weinstein, a lot of people, I think people knew that maybe he wasn't the greatest guy, but I sometimes now look at old video clips of people at the Oscars just praising him and think like, what was their reaction when suddenly
it's very wild to me because like when this whole thing was going on with Harvey Weinstein, I never knew, like, in all honesty, I had no idea who Harvey Weinstein was
No,
until
I
like the
probably
whole
didn't.
Me Too movement, like
Yeah.
movement came about. But I was familiar with his like entertainment company. It was like Miramax, and like
Yeah.
a lot of films that we watch like were produced by Miramax.
Yeah.
But before then I was like, who is this guy? And it's so crazy to like me how like little things like this in pop culture, like everyone's going to remember this forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when we were at university, I remember overhearing someone saying that they were doing their dissertation on Harvey Weinstein and the way the media covered it and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
the impact of it, people were doing their dissertations on it, like it's big. But then at the same time, the college admission scandals is kind of something similar in that, yeah, it maybe doesn't have like the movement attached to it, but it's a similar thing of like, these were people that like the public admired. And then
had everything, and it looks like if you
Yeah.
looked at their lives, you would go, you have everything you could possibly want, and yet still you don't have, even with all the tutors and all the access to money and everything you think you would need to get into one of these places, you have the best schools.
Yeah.
They still had to steal a scholarship from somebody who actually needed it and find their way through it.
What college was Olivia Jade at again? What college did she
It was USC.
Yeah.
USC. And this is going to be really ignorant, but like, what sort of things do you need to get into that sort of college? Like, do you need to have like the best grades and also like all the extracurriculars?
A lot of those schools, it was like Stanford, University of Southern California, University, UCLA. So yeah, like a lot of schools, I want to say like those were like, I think like the top 3 that were mostly addressed. But basically what makes them like so prestigious is the amount of people that want to get into them. And so it makes them exclusive because obviously they have all of these great students that are competing for very coveted spots. So a lot of it is your extracurriculars, the classes that you took in high school, like advanced placement, anything like that, your, you know, standardized test scores, which now so much aren't, I think, as much of a factor in for colleges, but I don't really know how it works. I think it kind of just varies from what each school looks at. But yeah, like you really have to be at the top of your class, like in the very top % to really even be considered. So,
and I just think how insulting that must have been to then hear Olivia Jade in videos going, oh, I don't really want to go to college. I just want to have like the college experience.
Exactly.
But then it's all linked to YouTube then, because then you get Dramageddon, which is just another moment, like 2 moments that aren't exactly the same, but it was a moment of people being like, what do we do now? Do we just hate this person? Do we unfollow them? Do we allow them to have their moment to say, hang on, this isn't exactly what happened? I think that's why they're also interesting. There's just this massive fall from grace of 3 very different areas of like pop culture, which is kind of cool. It's a nice coherent pop culture moments that you all chose. So well done.
Thank you.
Well done on your choices. They were all really good.
Before we go,
yes.
Oh, am I still?
I can hear you, but you are frozen a bit.
Well, I'll just.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, fabulous. I think I've come back. Do you guys? We normally ask people, do they have anything they want to recommend? Anything you're enjoying at the minute? Any books? Any podcasts? Any music?
Movies, TV shows, that sort of thing. Anything. Just absolutely anything in your life that you've like watched or done or read this week that you've thought, I want to tell the world about this. You got any recommendation we will take? We've put you on the spot.
I know.
I'll say, so I recently watched A Promising Young Woman, which is a movie that's nominated for I think an Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Actress, and it was such a good movie.
I want to watch this film so badly, but like it's not available in
so
the
it's
UK.
Really good, and honestly, like it goes into really what we talked about with the whole like Me Too movement, sexual assault, all of that. So to me, like it really addressed like a very important topic, but in a really like interesting way.
Nice.
So it was a really good movie. I rented it the other night and watched it, and I definitely see why it's nominated for an Academy Award. It's really good. And then other than that, definitely the college admission scandal on documentary on Netflix.
Cool.
Very big into like a lot of like the documentaries that have been coming out that have addressed a lot of pop culture issues, obviously, because that's what we like to talk about.
Yeah.
But those are the two biggest things I've seen recently that are really good. So
have you watched the docuseries on Woody Allen and Mia Farrow?
No, I haven't, but I really want to, because I heard a lot of good things.
It's very good, very interesting. I really recommend that. I know this wasn't what I recommend, but if you like that sort of thing, recommend that. Anyway.
I think something for me, the Grammys just happened, and if you haven't seen it, just go back and watch Harry Styles' performance and Dua Lipa's performances, because they were just so good. And that's,
what did you think about Dua Lipa's outfit? Because like the initial outfit, because I was obsessed with this outfit, but Holly thought it was just mediocre, but I thought this was I was stunned by this.
I thought it was absolutely incredible. I think
she looked incredible. I
love
said
that
that
was
picture
kind of an homage to like I think Mariah Carey and some other people have worn like the similar like butterfly design.
It was a big Cher moment.
Yes,
right, and the hair as well. I thought it was very Cher. Yeah, I agree.
She looked amazing.
She did. Yeah, we talked about that on our podcast this week, and we had a lot of thoughts on all the fashion. So we probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't get into that because I could talk for another hour. So.
Right.
This is gonna sound like so basic. Hannah and Amanda are gonna know this. I'm like really, really obsessed with the Vogue Beauty channel on YouTube, and like that is my comfort, like the best thing ever to me. Like that's self-care to me. And Orion Carlotto just did like a little IGTV with Vogue Italy, and it's like a beauty secrets video, but like on their Instagram. But if you don't watch the beauty secrets videos, like do yourself a favor. They're the best things ever. It's just very calming, and yeah, I love them.
Is the beauty secrets ones where like they usually have like a model and they've got like their hair in a towel and they're doing their makeup? Because if it's those ones, I love those videos.
Yeah, it's typically that. They're just like doing their makeup routine in their bathroom, and like that's literally, I love it so much.
I don't know why it's calming to watch, but I find it very calming to see someone do their makeup. I think it's because like their skin is so smooth as well, and I'm just like, oh,
I know.
Nice products.
It looks so good.
Yeah. It just goes on so well, and I just can't fully relate, but I'm very calmed by it. So
exactly.
Works for me. Well, we just want to say a big thank you for coming on today. We really enjoyed hearing your pop culture moments, and they were actually amazing because we honestly couldn't choose which one we preferred, which is quite something. I think every time we do one of these podcasts, we're just really surprised by what people say, because we talk about pop culture so much, and every time someone says something that we're just like, why haven't we talked about that before? Because it's such a big part of pop culture.
There's so many.
Yes, there's so much that you just don't cover and don't even think about. So definitely giving us some inspirations on some stuff that maybe we want to talk about in the future. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you guys so much
for having us.
I know this has been so fun, and it's been so great meeting you guys.
Yeah.
Great. And also, I love when we do this as well, because it's so nice to hear other people's accents. So it's just really fun hearing American accents. So yeah, thank you once again for coming on this. It's been
no
great.
problem. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.